What is the first friend you ever had? For many of us, it was not a person. It was something quiet, gentle, and always there: nature, trees, rivers, mountains, fresh air, birds, and flowers. They were our first teachers, our first playground, and our first comfort. But as we grow older, many of us forget this friend. We move to busy cities, surrounded by noise and machines. We cut down trees, pollute rivers, waste water, and fill the air with smoke. We forget the soft songs of birds and the peaceful whispers of the wind. Today's story is brought to you by Read and Learn English. This story is not just for reading, listening, and speaking practice. It is also a gentle reminder, a call to remember and care for our forgotten friend, nature. This story is about a boy who grew up loving nature, then left it behind, but nature never left him. It waited patiently. One day, the boy, now a man, finds his way back and learns the true meaning of friendship, care, and hope. As you read and listen, imagine walking through green fields, hearing birds sing, feeling cool river water, and breathing fresh air. Repeat after me, practice your English, and open your heart to nature's quiet voice, because nature is more than trees and rivers. Nature is life itself, and it needs our love. Welcome to this journey of rediscovery and hope. Let's begin with Read and Learn English. Chapter 1. A Boy and the Green Field. There was once a little boy who lived in a small, quiet village in the heart of the countryside. His house was simple. It was made of wood, with a roof of dried leaves, and it stood between tall trees and open sky. He didn't have a television. He didn't have a phone, but he never felt bored. He had something more special. He had nature. Every morning, the boy woke up to the sound of birds singing outside his window. Not one or two birds, but many. Some had red feathers, some yellow, and some blue. They filled the trees like tiny musicians. Their songs were sweet, soft, and full of joy. They were his natural alarm clock, waking him with love instead of noise. The sunlight came through the cracks in the wooden wall. It touched the floor like a golden ribbon. The air smelled fresh, like leaves, like earth, like morning. The boy smiled. He didn't need coffee. He didn't need music. The world itself was alive, and he was a part of it. Outside his house was a big green field. It was open and free, stretching all the way to the trees in the distance. The grass was soft and cool. Every day the boy ran across it barefoot. He laughed as the wind pushed his hair back. He felt light, like he could fly. In that field he was not just a boy. He was a bird, a butterfly, a cloud. He had no toys, but he had sticks, stones, and flowers. He made his own games. He chased shadows. He followed ants. He listened to bees. Nature gave him everything: fun, adventure, and peace. There was a river nearby. It was small, but it flowed clearly, like a silver ribbon moving between rocks. The boy loved sitting by it. He dipped his feet in the water. It was cold, clean, and playful. Sometimes he talked to the river. "Where are you going?" he would ask. The river, of course, didn't speak with words, but it had a sound, a soft, flowing sound that answered in its own way. And the boy listened. In his heart, he believed the river was his friend, a quiet, wise friend who never stopped moving. Trees grew all around the village: tall trees, short trees, fruit trees. One tree in particular stood behind his house. Its branches were wide and strong. In summer, it gave shade. In the rainy season, it danced in the wind. The boy would climb it sometimes, sit on a branch, and look at the sky. He felt like a king sitting on a throne made by nature. There were also hills and a faraway mountain. Every evening when the sun began to go down, the mountain turned golden. The boy loved to sit and watch it. He imagined it was alive, a giant, peaceful creature watching over the world. The mountain didn't speak, but it made the boy feel safe. The sky at night was also different in the village. There were no city lights, no tall buildings, just stars, millions of them. The boy would lie on his back and look up. He didn't know their names, but he gave them names himself. "That's the star of dreams," he would say. "That one is the star of kindness." Nature was not loud. It didn't shout or scream. It didn't ask for attention. It was always there, quietly loving. The wind cooled him when the sun was hot. The tree gave him fruit when he was hungry. The rain came when the plants were dry, and the flowers bloomed just to make the world beautiful. The boy never said thank you out loud, but he showed it. He picked up trash when he found it. He never broke branches without reason. He walked gently. He smiled often. He didn't know the word environment. He didn't know climate change. But he knew something deeper. He felt the connection. He felt the heartbeat of the earth in the sound of the river. He felt the love of the sky and the warmth of the sun. He didn't feel alone. He didn't feel small. He felt held, protected, understood. Nature was his first friend. It didn't laugh at him. It didn't leave him. It didn't expect gifts. It just gave. Every day. Sometimes the boy would close his eyes in the green field and whisper, "Thank you." Not to anyone. Not to something he could see. But to the trees, to the river, to the mountain, to the sky. He didn't know it, but he was lucky. He was rich. He had everything, because he had nature, and nature had him. Chapter 2. The Mountain That Spoke. The boy's favorite place in the village was not the field or the river. It was the mountain. Far beyond the green fields and tall trees, the mountain stood quietly like a giant. It did not move. It did not change. Every morning, it welcomed the sunrise. Every evening, it held the last light of the day. It was always there, strong, calm, and silent. The boy often looked at the mountain from far away. He liked how it stood alone, but never looked lonely. One day, when the sky was clear and the wind was gentle, he decided to walk closer. He packed a small bag with water, some fruits, and a piece of bread. His mother smiled and said, "Don't be late, my son." The boy nodded and set off, his feet stepping lightly on the earth. The walk to the mountain was long, but the boy didn't mind. Along the way, he saw butterflies resting on flowers, heard birds singing in hidden places, and felt the cool breeze on his face. After some time, he reached a large rock at the base of the mountain. It was smooth and warm from the sun. The boy sat down, tired but happy. He looked up at the mountain. It was quiet, as always. But something felt different this time. Maybe it was the stillness, or maybe it was the boy's imagination. But he began to feel that the mountain was watching him, not with eyes, but with a gentle presence. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "Mountain, what do you see?" To his surprise, in his heart, he felt an answer, not in words exactly, but in feeling, in thought. The mountain, still and strong, seemed to say, "I have seen many things. I have been here for thousands of years." The boy opened his eyes. The mountain looked the same, but now it felt alive. The voice in his heart continued, "I have seen little boys like you grow into men. I have seen trees rise and fall. I have watched rivers change their path. And I am still here." The boy listened closely, not moving, not speaking. "People rush," said the mountain. "They want everything fast. But I know the secret. Good things take time." The boy thought of how he sometimes felt impatient, wanting to grow up fast, wanting answers right away. The mountain seemed to smile in silence. "I do not run," it said. "I do not shout. I simply stand. I wait. And because of that, I last." The boy looked at the rocks around him. Some were old and broken, but the mountain remained tall. It had faced storms, winds, and rains. Still it stood. Why? Because it did not fight. It simply stayed strong, steady, and kind. The mountain told more stories, not with words, but through feelings that touched the boy's heart. It told the story of a tree that took 50 years to grow tall. It told of a river that changed its shape to flow around hard stones. It told of the stars that watched the earth for centuries, shining even when no one noticed. The boy began to understand. Nature is patient. Nature does not hurry, but everything it does is beautiful. He sat there for a long time. The wind blew softly. A few clouds moved slowly across the sky. A bird landed nearby, picking at the ground, then flew away. Everything moved at its own pace. No rush, no stress. The boy thought about his own life. Sometimes he wanted to grow big fast. Sometimes he wanted to be important right now. But now he understood something new. The mountain was teaching him the value of time, peace, and patience. Before the sun went down, the boy stood up. He looked at the mountain and whispered, "Thank you." He began to walk home, slowly, peacefully, with the mountain behind him. But something had changed. A new feeling had grown in his heart, a quiet strength. He felt calmer. He felt wiser. The mountain had not spoken with sound, but it had shared something far more powerful. From that day on, whenever the boy felt sad, angry, or lost, he remembered the mountain's lesson. Don't rush. Stand strong. Be patient. Everything good takes time. And even when he grew older, even when he left the village, even when life became busy and noisy, he never forgot that quiet day at the mountain's feet. Because sometimes the greatest teachers do not speak at all. Sometimes they just stand and wait until we are ready to listen. Chapter 3. The Tree That Gave Everything. In the corner of the green field behind the boy's house, there was an old tree. It was tall and strong, with wide branches and thick roots. Its leaves danced with the wind and its bark was rough but kind. The boy didn't know how old the tree was. Maybe 20 years, maybe 100. But for him, it was always there, like a silent guardian. This tree was not just a tree to the boy. It was a friend, a playground, a shelter, and a teacher. He would climb it every morning, stepping carefully from branch to branch. From the top, he could see the whole village, the rooftops, the fields, the hills, and the sky. He loved how the wind touched his face as he sat high up in the tree. Sometimes he closed his eyes and felt like he was flying. In the hot summer months, the tree gave him shade. The sun was strong in the village, and the air could get heavy. But under the tree, it was cool and peaceful. The boy would lie on the ground with his hands behind his head, watching the leaves move slowly above him. He listened to the soft rustling. It was like the tree was whispering stories only he could hear. In the fruiting season, the tree gave him mangoes, big, sweet mangoes that dropped gently to the earth when they were ready. He would eat them fresh and juicy, the golden juice running down his hands. He laughed every time, knowing that the tree had prepared these gifts just for him. In the cold season, the tree stood firm. Its branches held the morning mist like a soft blanket. The boy still visited it, wrapped in a shawl, sitting at the base of the trunk, talking to it quietly. He didn't know if the tree understood him, but he always felt heard. One day, a strong wind came. It was not a normal breeze, but a heavy storm. The clouds were dark, and the trees shook in fear. The boy watched from his window, worried. His friend, the tree, was swaying wildly, but not falling. The next morning, the storm was gone. The sky was blue again. The boy ran outside to check. The tree had lost some branches and a few leaves were scattered like feathers on the ground. But it was still standing, still strong. He ran up to it, touched its bark gently, and whispered, "Thank you for staying." That day, he noticed something else. The branches that had fallen had smooth wood inside. His father came and took some pieces to make a small bench and firewood. Even in pain, the tree gave, without asking, without crying, without complaint. The boy thought about that for a long time. He sat on the bench made from a part of the tree. He warmed his hands near the fire from its wood. And he realized this tree had given him everything: shade, fruit, shelter, joy, and even warmth. It never asked for anything in return. It never said, "Stop taking." It never said, "I am tired." It just gave, quietly, patiently, fully. That evening, as the sun painted the sky orange and red, the boy sat under the tree once more. He placed his hand on the trunk and said softly, "I will take care of you forever." He meant it. From that day, he cleaned around the tree. He picked up trash that others dropped. He watered it during dry days. He told others, "This tree is special. Please don't harm it." Years passed. The boy grew taller. His world slowly changed, but every day he still came to the tree. Sometimes with stories, sometimes with silence. The tree didn't mind. It was always there, giving without expecting, standing without pride. One day, the boy asked the tree in his heart, "Why do you give so much?" The wind moved through the leaves gently, and in the quietest way the tree answered, not with words, but with feeling. Because that is love. True giving does not wait for return. The boy smiled. He understood now. Nature gives, and gives, and gives, and it is up to us to notice it, to respect it, and to give back. He hugged the tree gently, his arms not even reaching halfway around its thick trunk. But the tree didn't mind. It had already wrapped him in its love for years. And deep inside, the boy made a quiet promise that no matter where life would take him, no matter how busy the world would become, he would never forget this tree, the tree that gave everything. Chapter 4. The City Calls. Time moves like a quiet river. Days pass, seasons change. The little boy who once ran barefoot through green fields and climbed trees in joy was now growing taller. His voice became deeper. His hands became stronger. His eyes looked further than the hills and the sky. One day, his father sat beside him under their favorite tree, the one that gave everything, and said, "It is time, my son. You must go to the city and learn. Life is changing. You need to be ready." The boy didn't answer right away. He looked at the tree, at the river, at the sky that had always been his friend. He loved his village deeply, but he understood. He knew that to grow, sometimes one must leave. So, with a heavy heart and a hopeful mind, the boy packed his small bag. His mother gave him a warm meal wrapped in cloth. His father gave him advice, and the tree, it gave him one last silent blessing as he touched its bark and whispered, "I will come back." The journey to the city was long. The road was filled with noise. Cars moved fast. Horns shouted. The air was thick, not fresh like the village. There were no birds singing, only machines growling. When he reached the city, everything felt different. The buildings were tall, like metal mountains, but they did not speak like the mountain back home. They only stood there, cold and hard, blocking the sky. The streets were full of people, walking fast, looking at their phones, not smiling. No one said hello. No one stopped to listen to the wind. The boy now lived in a small room made of concrete. No trees outside his window, no river nearby. Just walls, wires, and windows. At night, the stars were hidden by city lights. He missed the dark sky filled with stars. He missed the soft songs of crickets and frogs. He missed the silence. Every morning, instead of bird songs, he woke to the sound of alarms and traffic. Instead of running through grass, he walked on hard pavement. Instead of watching butterflies, he watched people rush, always in a hurry, always too busy. The boy, now a young man, went to school and studied hard. He learned about science, machines, business, and technology. He sat in rooms with bright screens and many voices. He made new friends. He began to dream of a better future. He told himself, "This is life. I must move forward." But deep in his heart, something felt different. Something felt missing. One evening, after a long day, he walked alone through a crowded city park. There were a few small trees there, planted in straight lines, like they were part of a plan. He touched one tree's bark. It was young, thin, and tired. It was not like the strong, wise tree from his village, but still, he sat under it for a moment. He closed his eyes and remembered the sound of the river, the voice of the mountain, the gift of the mango tree, and the wind playing in his hair. A tear fell down his cheek. He whispered to the small city tree, "I miss my real friends." The tree said nothing, but the wind gently moved its leaves, as if to say, "I miss you too." As time passed, the young man became used to the city. He worked hard, followed routines, and slowly forgot the smell of the earth after rain, the coolness of river water, the feeling of grass under his feet. He became one of the many, walking fast, working late, always inside. He didn't mean to forget, but the city was loud, and nature was quiet. One day, while walking to work, he saw a little boy sitting on the ground beside a tree stump. The tree had been cut down and the boy looked sad. He asked, "What happened to the tree?" The boy said, "They removed it to make space for a new road." The young man nodded, but inside, something broke. That night, he couldn't sleep. His thoughts were full of memories, of his old tree, his village, the mountain, the river. He realized that in all his success, in all his learning, he had lost his oldest friend, nature. He sat by the window and looked at the streetlight. There were no stars, no wind, no silence. And in that moment he understood. He had followed the city's call, but he had left something behind, something that once made him whole. Chapter 5. The Forgotten Friend. Years went by. The boy who once ran in green fields, climbed tall trees, and talked to mountains was now a man in a busy city. He wore a shirt and tie. He worked at a desk. He carried a phone everywhere. He spoke about deadlines, meetings, and business growth. But he no longer spoke to the river. He no longer listened to the wind. He no longer looked at the stars. The man had forgotten his first friend, nature. His days were full of work. He woke up late, rushed through his morning, drank coffee from a plastic cup, and left for the office in a car. On the way, he passed streets filled with traffic and smoke. He didn't notice the trees. Most of them were gone anyway, cut down to build roads, malls, and tall buildings. At the office, he used paper without thinking. He threw away plastic bottles. He let water run from the tap too long. When he finished lunch, he threw his food box in the trash, not knowing or not caring where it would go. The sky outside his window was no longer blue. It was often gray, thick with pollution. The birds didn't sing. The air made people cough. But this was normal now. He didn't think about the river he used to play in. He didn't remember the mango tree that gave him shade. He didn't hear the mountain's voice anymore. He was too busy. One weekend, he visited a shopping mall with friends. Inside, he saw many things: shoes, clothes, food, phones, lights, music, ads. Everything shouted for attention. Everything was buy now. Hurry. Limited time. He joined the rush. He bought more than he needed. As he walked out carrying plastic bags, something caught his eye. A small plant in a pot, dry and wilting. A sign read, "Last plant, sale." No one looked at it. People walked by without care. For a moment, the man stopped. The small plant reminded him of something. But what? He shook his head. "Just a plant," he whispered, and walked away. That night he had trouble sleeping. He dreamed of his village. He saw the river, but it was dry. He saw the tree, but it had been cut down. He saw the mountain, but it was covered in smoke. The stars were gone. The birds were silent. The earth looked tired, broken. And then, in the dream, he heard a voice, soft, sad, familiar. "You forgot me." He turned but saw no one. "You played with me, loved me, laughed with me, but now you don't see me anymore." It was the voice of nature. "I gave you air. I gave you water. I gave you life. And now you give me plastic, fire, and smoke." The man woke up, sweating. His heart was heavy. He looked out the window. It was dark, not peaceful like the nights in his village, just empty and loud. The next morning, on the way to work, he noticed a tree stump by the road. A tree had been cut down. Around it were plastic bottles, bags, and trash. A dog sniffed at the garbage. A child coughed nearby. He suddenly felt shame, deep, painful shame. He realized he had taken too much. He had never given back. He had forgotten the one friend who never asked for anything, but gave everything. For the first time in years, he stopped. He sat on a bench and closed his eyes. He whispered, "I'm sorry." He remembered the mountain that taught him patience. He remembered the river that whispered to him. He remembered the tree that gave him shade, fruit, and joy. Tears filled his eyes. "I forgot you," he said softly. "But I want to remember. I want to come back." The city did not answer. But in his heart, he felt something shift. A soft breeze touched his face, like an old friend saying, "I'm still here." Chapter 6. A World Without Songs. The man began to notice things that others didn't. He walked to work one morning and looked up at the sky. It was not blue. It had not been blue in a long time. It was pale and gray, like a dusty cloth covering the sun. The light felt tired. The wind, once fresh and cool, now carried the smell of smoke and fuel. The air made his throat hurt. It stung his eyes. People around him coughed and wore masks, but no one asked why the air was like this. No one spoke about the missing birds. No one asked where the butterflies had gone. Life just continued, fast, noisy, and blind. But not for him. Something inside him had changed. One evening, he left work late. The streets were filled with lights and cars. The sound of engines, horns, and shouting people filled the night. But something was missing, something he used to hear without even trying. There were no birds, no evening songs, no gentle chirps, no soft wings flying above. He stopped walking and looked up. Not a single bird in the sky, not a single leaf on the trees. In fact, the trees themselves were disappearing. Old trees had been cut down. New buildings stood in their place. Parks had become parking lots. The river near the edge of the city was now dirty and dry. People threw trash in it. No one listened to its gentle voice anymore. It had become a silent, sick shadow of what it once was. And the man began to feel something strange. He felt empty. He had a job, a phone, clothes, and money. He had everything the city promised. But still, something was missing. He missed the green. He missed the air that didn't hurt. He missed the peace that came from simply sitting under a tree. He missed the songs, not from radios or phones, but from the earth itself. His heart ached. He felt like a child who had lost a friend. He remembered how, in his village, birds used to sing him awake. The mango tree would offer fruit without being asked. The wind told stories, the river laughed with him, and the stars listened at night. All those gifts, and he had forgotten them. Now the world around him was loud, crowded, and tired. The city had taken so much: space, silence, sky, and song. He passed a playground where children were playing, but something felt strange. The children were not running through fields. They were jumping on plastic floors, inside a box of concrete. There were no trees to climb, no birds to chase, no butterflies to watch. He saw one little boy holding a toy bird in his hand. It made sounds, fake chirps from a speaker. The boy pressed a button, and the toy sang. The man felt a deep sadness. That boy might never know the real sound of a bird calling at sunrise. He walked home slowly. That night, he sat at his window with the lights off. He listened to the city, the traffic, the machines, the never-ending noise. But he couldn't hear nature. He couldn't hear peace. He whispered, "Where did the songs go?" And in the quiet, a voice from inside him replied, "You stopped listening. You stopped caring." And slowly, the songs stopped. That night, he couldn't sleep. He remembered the stories the mountain had told him. He remembered the promise he made to the tree, "I will take care of you forever." But he didn't keep his promise. And now, the world was full of people, but empty of soul. He asked himself, is this the future we wanted? A world without trees, without birds, without beauty. A world where children know plastic more than flowers. Tears filled his eyes. He understood something very clearly now. We can live without noise, but we cannot live without nature. And nature is not just outside us, it is part of us. He realized the silence he felt inside was not just from losing birds or rivers. It was the silence of forgetting who we truly are. We come from the earth. We belong to it. We are not above it. We are part of it. The next morning, the man stood in front of his mirror. He saw his own reflection, tired eyes, busy face, empty smile. He asked himself a new question. Is it too late to bring back the songs? He didn't know the answer yet, but he knew he had to try. Chapter 7. A Letter from the Earth. One night, the man lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The city lights blinked through the window like tired stars. His heart felt heavy. His thoughts were quiet, but deep. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep, but something kept him awake. A feeling he couldn't explain. It was like someone was calling his name, but not with a voice. More like a soft whisper inside his soul. Finally, he drifted off. And in his dream, something strange happened. He stood alone in a wide, empty field. The sky above was gray. The air was quiet. No birds, no wind, no sound. The ground was dry and cracked like old skin. There were no trees, no rivers, just silence. He looked around, confused. Then, in front of him, something appeared, floating slowly from the sky. It was a letter, an old, beautiful letter made of leaves and light. It glowed softly and landed in his hands. There was no stamp, no address, just one word written on the front. To my child. His hands shook as he opened it. Inside, in beautiful handwriting made of vines and sunlight, it read, Dear child, I remember the day you were born. You opened your eyes under my sky, took your first breath from my air, learned to walk on my soil, and smiled at my birds and flowers. You played in my rivers, climbed my trees, slept under my stars, and laughed in my wind. You were happy, and so was I. But then, you grew up. You started to forget me. You stopped coming to the forest. You stopped listening to the birds. You stopped looking at the sky. You built walls and machines. You cut my trees. You burned my air. You filled my rivers with plastic. You made me sick. And still, I waited. I gave you fruits. I gave you water. I gave you beauty. I gave you life. And what did I ask in return? Nothing. Only love. Only care. But you became too busy. You stopped seeing me. And yet, I never stopped loving you. I am Earth. I am your oldest friend. I am your first home. And I am still here, waiting. Please remember me. Please come back, not just for me, but for yourself and for the children after you. With hope, your Earth. The man stood in the dream, tears falling from his eyes. He looked up, and for a moment, the sky cleared. He saw stars. He heard a distant river. He felt the soft wind, warm and alive. Then everything faded. He woke up in his bed, heart racing. He looked around. His room was the same. The city outside was still loud, but something inside him had changed. He walked to the window. For the first time in a long time, he noticed the trees on the street. They were small, dusty, and struggling, but still standing. He whispered, I'm sorry, then added, Thank you for the letter. He knew it was just a dream, but somehow it didn't feel like a dream at all. It felt like the truth. It felt like a wake-up call. From that moment, He decided he would remember the earth. He would begin again, one small action at a time, because he now understood something deeply. Earth never left us. We just stopped listening. Chapter 8. The Journey Back. The man stood in front of the train station, holding a small bag. Inside was only what he needed: some clothes, a notebook, and the dream that had changed everything. His heart beat a little faster as he looked at the ticket in his hand. It said the name of the place where he was born, his village, his first home. It had been many years. Years filled with city noise, busy days, and forgotten memories. But now, he was going back. The train ride was long and quiet. As the city disappeared behind him, the tall buildings turned into fields, and the traffic sounds turned into silence. He looked out the window, hoping to see the green he remembered, but the colors weren't the same. The land looked dry. The trees seemed tired. When he stepped off the train, the wind greeted him like an old friend, but weaker now. It didn't carry the fresh smell of trees or flowers. It was dusty and warm. He walked slowly through the village paths, each one full of memories. There was the old well where he used to play, the stone wall he climbed as a child, the open field where he ran barefoot. But something had changed. The forest was thinner. Many trees were gone. The big one, the tree that gave everything, was still there, but it looked older now. Some branches were missing. Its leaves were fewer. But when he touched its bark, he felt a soft vibration, as if the tree still remembered him. He sat beneath it, just like he used to. His hand on the trunk, he whispered, "I'm sorry I left. I forgot you." A leaf gently floated down and landed in his lap. He smiled. Then he walked to the river. The path was cracked and dry. The plants on both sides were brown and quiet. When he reached the river's edge, his heart sank. The river was almost gone. A thin line of water moved slowly, like a whisper of what once was. The stones that used to lie hidden beneath the water now lay dry and dusty in the sun. He sat down on a rock beside the river, remembering the cold water on his feet, the sound of its laughter, the way it used to talk to him. Now, it was silent, and yet he didn't feel hopeless, because he had come back. He believed that if he could forget, he could also remember. If trees could fall, new ones could grow. If the river could run dry, maybe with care, it could flow again. He stood up and walked to the center of the village where people were sitting under a small tree, talking. They looked surprised to see him. "Is that you?" someone asked. "You've been gone for so long." He nodded and smiled. "Yes. And I came back because I want to help." He told them about his dream, about the letter from the earth, about the empty sky, the lost birds, and the silence in his heart. Some listened quietly, some looked unsure. But one old man nodded and said, "Maybe it's time we listened to nature again." Over the next few days, the man began doing small things. He cleaned the path near the river. He planted a new tree beside the old one. He picked up plastic near the forest edge. Children started watching him. Some joined him. They laughed as they dug little holes for seeds. They asked questions about trees, rivers, and stars. He smiled and answered, "They're all waiting for us to remember them." The villagers began to notice. A woman brought her extra water to help the new plants. A group of boys collected trash from the field. A few people even agreed to stop cutting trees for firewood. Bit by bit, the village began to breathe again. The man felt something in his heart shift, not just sadness for what was lost, but hope for what could still return. He sat under the old tree one evening as the sun went down. The sky, though not fully clear, held a little lighter. He heard a soft chirp, a bird, small and brown, sitting on a branch above. It was the first bird he had heard in weeks. He closed his eyes and listened, not to the past, but to the beginning of something new. The journey back wasn't just a return to his village. It was a return to himself, to the boy who once listened to rivers, to the boy who once believed the mountain could speak, to the boy who once promised to care for a tree forever. Now, as a man, he was keeping that promise, and deep inside, he knew it is never too late to come home, never too late to remember, never too late to love the earth again. Chapter 9. One tree, one change. The man stood in the soft morning light, holding a small sapling in his hands. The soil was fresh and damp, ready to receive life. He looked around at the empty patch of land near the village's edge, a place once full of trees, now bare. He remembered the letter from the earth, the silent songs of the mountain, and the old tree that gave everything. He felt a quiet hope stirring inside. "Today, I will plant a tree," he said softly. He dug a small hole with his hands. The earth smelled sweet, like the first rain after a long, dry season. He placed the sapling gently in the hole, covered its roots with soil, and pressed the ground lightly. The tree was small, but full of promise. He watered it from a small bucket and smiled. This was the beginning. Word spread quickly through the village. Children saw the man planting his tree. Curious, they gathered around. Some brought shovels, others brought seeds. One by one, they started planting too. A little girl held a tiny flower. "Can I plant this?" she asked. "Of course," the man replied, his heart full. Soon the empty land was no longer lonely. Tiny green leaves began to poke through the soil. The air seemed fresher. The sun seemed warmer. Parents and neighbors watched. Some smiled. Some joined. One day, a group of boys came carrying bags filled with seeds collected from wild plants. They asked the man, "Can we plant more trees?" "Yes," he said with joy. Each tree was a small promise, a promise to the earth, to the future, and to themselves. The children learned about the trees, how they gave shade, cleaned the air, and gave homes to birds and animals. They learned that every leaf was a gift. The man told them stories of the mountain that spoke, the river that laughed, and the tree that gave everything without asking. The village began to change. Trash disappeared from the streets. People stopped cutting down old trees without planting new ones. Water was saved. The river, though still quiet, showed signs of life again. One evening, the man sat under a young tree, no bigger than a child's arm. The sun set in colors of pink and gold. He looked at the children playing nearby, their laughter mixing with the soft rustling of leaves. He realized something important. One tree could change a small part of the world, but more than that, one tree could change hearts. One small action could inspire many. He remembered the mountain's words about patience and time. He thought about the river's slow but steady flow. He understood now that healing was not fast or easy. It was slow. It was quiet. But it was possible. The man smiled and whispered, "Thank you, Earth, for reminding me that every little thing matters." And as the stars began to shine softly in the night sky, the village felt a little lighter, a little happier. a little more alive. Because one tree had started a change, and that change was just beginning. Chapter 10. A New Promise. The man stood before a group of young people gathered under the shade of a growing tree. Their eyes were bright with curiosity. Some held small plants, others notebooks, and many just listened quietly. He looked at their faces and remembered himself as a boy, full of wonder, full of questions, full of hope. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "Nature was my first friend," he said softly. "When I was a child, I ran in fields, climbed trees, and listened to the wind. The river sang to me, the mountain told me stories, the trees gave me shade and fruit. They gave me everything." The young people looked around at the trees and grass, some nodding quietly. "But," he continued, "I forgot my friend. I left the green fields for the city, and I forgot to care. I used plastic, cut trees, wasted water, and polluted the air. I stopped listening." A few heads lowered, understanding the weight of his words. "Then," he smiled, "I had a dream. The earth sent me a letter. It reminded me, I never forgot you. And that changed everything." He paused and looked at the saplings the children were holding. "Now, I want to teach you what I learned, to love and protect nature, because it is not just outside us, it is part of us. It gives us air to breathe, water to drink, and food to eat. It is our home." One girl raised her hand. "But how can we help? We are small." The man smiled warmly. "Small actions make big changes. Planting a tree, saving water, cleaning trash, and respecting every living thing. These are the first steps. And teaching others to do the same." He looked at the group and said, "Nature was my first friend. Now I will be its friend too. Will you be friends with nature?" Hands raised. "Yes." The man felt hope fill his heart. He saw the future, bright, green, full of life. As the sun set, casting golden light through the leaves, the man knew this was a new beginning, not just for him, but for everyone who chose to remember, to care, and to protect. Because friendship with nature is a promise to love, a promise to protect, a promise to never forget again. And with that promise, the world could heal, slowly, surely, beautifully. Chapter 11. Nature's Quiet Smile. The seasons changed gently. Time moved quietly, like the slow flow of a river. The man watched the world around him with a new heart, full of care and hope. He noticed the little trees he and the children planted begin to grow. Their green leaves stretched toward the sky, soft and fresh. The branches grew stronger each day. Slowly, the empty patches of land filled with life again. Birds began to return. At first, it was a few small chirps in the early morning. Then, their songs grew louder and more beautiful. The man remembered how the birds once woke him in his village, filling the air with music. Now, that music was coming back. The river, which had been dry and silent, started to flow gently once more. The water sparkled in the sunlight, clean and clear. It whispered softly as it moved over smooth stones, telling stories of hope and patience. Nature did not shout or demand. It did not rush or force. It simply smiled, quiet, peaceful, and full of grace. The man sat beneath the old tree, now surrounded by many new ones. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The fresh air filled his lungs and warmed his soul. The soft rustle of leaves, the gentle songs of birds, and the cool touch of the breeze reminded him of the promise he made. A small child ran by, laughing, chasing butterflies. The man smiled and thought, "This is why we must protect nature. For the children, for the future." The village was changing slowly but surely. People began to see that nature's quiet smile was a gift, one that needed love and care. The man knew the journey was not over. There would be challenges ahead. But he also knew something very important. Great things take time. Healing is slow, but it is real. And when we care with patience and love, the earth will always smile back. He looked up at the sky, now clear and blue. A bird flew high, singing its song. He whispered, "Thank you, my friend." And in the quiet smile of nature, he found peace. Chapter 12. The Friend Who Always Waited. Many years had passed since the man first left his village. He had lived through busy cities, forgotten nature, and then found his way back. Now he stood in front of a small crowd in the village square. Children, parents, and elders listened closely, their faces curious and hopeful. He smiled warmly and began to speak. "We forgot nature," he said gently. "We forgot the trees, the rivers, the birds, and the air that gives us life. We built roads and buildings and took more than we needed. We hurt the earth without realizing the pain we caused." The crowd was silent. Some faces showed sadness, others showed understanding. "But," he continued, "nature never forgot us. Even when we turned away, it waited patiently. It never stopped giving. It never stopped loving. It never stopped hoping that we would come back." He looked at the children in front of him. "And now, it is not too late to be friends again." The children's eyes grew wide. Some smiled softly. Being friends with nature means caring for the earth every day. It means planting trees, saving water, protecting animals, and cleaning our streets. It means listening to the wind, watching the stars, and remembering where we come from. He told them stories of his journey, of the mountain that spoke, the river that whispered, the tree that gave everything, and the letter from the earth. He told them how small actions can grow into big changes. "Each of you can be a friend to nature," he said. "It is not only the work of grown-ups. Every seed you plant, every piece of trash you pick up, every kind word for the earth matters." He smiled again. "The earth has waited for us. Now it is time for us to return the love. Together we can heal this world." The people nodded, inspired and hopeful. As the sun set behind the hills, painting the sky with colors of gold and pink, the man looked up and whispered, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you for always waiting." And in the soft evening breeze, he felt the earth's quiet answer, a smile that lasts forever. Thank you for joining me today on Read and Learn English. I hope you enjoyed this story about our forgotten friend, nature. Remember, this story is not just for reading, listening, and speaking practice. It is a reminder that nature is always with us, giving us air to breathe, water to drink, and beauty to enjoy. But nature needs our care and respect. If we protect the trees, rivers, animals, and clean air, we protect ourselves and the future of our children. Even small actions can make a big difference. So, keep practicing your English with stories that teach us valuable lessons about life and the world around us. Please like, share, and subscribe to Read and Learn English to learn more stories that help your English and touch your heart. Let's keep learning, caring, and growing together. For nature, for ourselves, and for the world. Thank you, and see you next time.